gentlemen, this is Trisha with Insectopia, and we are on day 25 of Invertober, meaning we have been live streaming every single night for 25 days. It has been an absolute blast. We are closing in on the end here, last 5 days. Today is our last Tuesday tarot, right? So over the course of this next week, we are going to be doing a whole bunch of lasts, because we are in our last week. This Saturday is the last day that we're going to be spreading death's heads. But that might not be true, because I still have more to spread, so I might just do them live randomly. You'll have to come and check them out in November. Alright, we are talking about insects in the tarot deck today, and we are going to be focusing on the suit of Pentacles. Now, in the tarot deck, Pentacles are based in the element of Earth, and a lot of times they are connected to things like... what I want to say is, like, in real life. Like the material realm, you know? So things like health and money and reality and work, those types of things are a lot of times found in the suit of Pentacles. So there's that. I thought that Pentacles definitely connected with Beetles. Beetles are also very, like, worldly and earthbound, and many of which they spend most of their life underground, or interacting with the soil in some way, or chewing on rotting wood and reverting it back into soil and earth. And I feel like if you had one order of insects that you were going to relate back to earth, it's got to be the beetles. Oh, that's fun. I could continue with regular playing cards. Interesting. Interesting. We'll see what happens. I've actually made a deck of playing cards with pictures that I've taken rather than sketches. But those ones were created for a class that I did. But I could definitely do that again. I think it would be kind of cool to have a deck of cards that had all of, like, the microscope images from maybe the Guess That Bug. That would be cool. Alright, so, we're going to be doing something just a little bit different today. Ha ha ha. This has nothing to do with the fact that, I haven't had the chance to sketch the Pentacles, and everything with, I wanted to switch it up today, and, work on the symbology and kind of choosing the Beetles and talking through the symbology with you. It's just a little bit of a different approach. Many of the previous weeks I had kind of chosen the insect already, and I was doing an ink drawing. Today we're going to just switch it up a little bit, and we're going to be talking about the meanings behind the cards, and then after we do that, we'll be able to... after we do that, I'm going to go ahead and give us a quick sketch. And so then, hopefully, we will have most of our friends done. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping things fresh. Alright, so, we are starting with the Ace of Pentacles. We've always started with the Aces, and you'll hear this same thing from me. The Aces are symbolic. They generally have a hand inside of the image, and generally a sphere or a circular thing that looks almost similar to an egg. And the hand represents that you actually have to do something. So it's like the universe is handing you something, but you can't just take it. You've got to, like, commit to something or create an action. Like, it's the right time to do something, but you've got to take it on. And that's with all of the aces. So when we're talking about the Ace of Pentacles, it generally is going to be talking about opportunity in IRL. Opportunity in IRL. Like, getting, like, investments, and the fact that you may be having healthy beginnings. So there's this idea that there's an opportunity for kind of real growth, whether that is monetarily or like in relation with your health. So the other thing that the Ace of Pentacles could mean, if you're looking at kind of the background symbology, a lot of times you can be talking about strengthening your roots to the ground and maybe like centering your body, kind of starting to build that foundation. So aces are a good time for new growth, and when we're talking about pentacles, we could be talking about building a solid foundation and having like really strong roots. We might have something there. If we did... So, when I think of... Oh, you know what we could do? All right. So, I think the idea is going to be, we are actually underground. The Ace of Pentacles is going to be a grub. It's going to be a C-shaped grub, I think. Because that's going to be a scarab. They're really closely related to, you know, it being in the ground. They're actually feeding on grass roots. And so they're very connected and kind of grounded. But my thought is, yes, they're feeding on grass roots, but instead of being down here feeding on grass, maybe it's in a garden. Because what I want is, I want this kind of C-shaped grub on the bottom under here. And don't mind my really fast sketches. So we've got this kind of C-shaped grub. It's got these spiracles along its side. Generally, those are hard. We've got eyes up here. And I'm thinking we put a claw in the ground, like a gardening tool, because that's kind of like a hand, and it would be like around it, trying to kind of grab it out. Like talking about going in and collecting your opportunities and connecting yourself to the ground and being that there are new opportunities. So this gardener is going to be pulling this grub out of the ground, and there's going to be many new opportunities for their plants to grow because they are taking the effort and digging up their soil. Meanwhile, Susan is painting caterpillars. Oh, no, that's great. If you, it's good to just, you know, have me running on in the background so you can chat and hear me and, be a part of the conversation. I love that you're here. All right. Unless dung would fit a better card. Dung ball is an investment in the future. Oh, that's true. Now, the thing is that I actually have a dung beetle, I think as strength. Nope, not strength. Nope, not the chariot. I have a dung beetle as one of the major arcana. Right here. I have this dung beetle as the emperor, and he is all about rules and structure and stability and the ability to think logically about a situation. I don't know. He's like super, super stable and a leader. I don't know. I feel like with scarabs, oh yeah, and he's surrounded in fire because that's going to be a really cool effect on the card, and it connects with what it shows in real life. But or what it shows on like the card. So I already have dung beetles. So that's gonna be good. Who else do we already have? I want to make sure. I don't know how many other beetles. We already did a sunburst diving beetle as the sun. And we did the fire chasing beetles as lovers. And so those are the beetles that we have used so far. And so any other beetle is fair game. Especially if they are unique. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the Ace of Pentacles here. Now, if I was going through and sketching this kind of IRL, there are a couple of symbols that I've been trying to put the symbols from the original cards into the pictures too. Some of those symbols I'm just going to write down here, and I will have to figure out how to work them in later. One of which is a rose. I think we probably can create a path moving in the background so that we can have that one done. Like a path to walk. Along with, we're already in the garden. That's kind of cool. Mountains. So the tarot decks really like to use mountains in their symbology to talk about like overcoming hurdles. And I'm regularly like trying to fit mountains into the background of my cards. So we've got mountains, flowers. There is an arch, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. This path comes through the mountains. I think that'll be cool for the symbology of everything. We've got some mountains and a path, and we've got a garden, and what I'm thinking is I'll take like a rose and I'll wrap it around the handle. But those sketches are going to take me a little bit more time, and if we are going through and kind of planning these, then that is going to be better. Scarab beetle. Perfect. By nibbling the grass roots, it probably stimulates the plant to grow more and better ones. That's true enough. I like that idea too. That even though it's being destructive, or maybe it's feeding on the roots of. So maybe it's feeding on the roots of like the invasives or the non-natives, and it's giving space for the better plants to grow. Yeah, so you are right. You were hoping for a tiny wasp with for strength. I actually had strength as a water tiger. We can bounce around. So strength I thought would be this water tiger. Water tigers, actually, so it's good we're talking about this because a water tiger is also a grub. It's an immature beetle. This is an immature diving beetle, and it only has the ability to kind of see 2 pixels high. It has a very wide range of view, but it doesn't have the ability to see up and down very well. So what it does is it sits here in the water with its spiracles, or its breathing apparatus, up, and it floats upside down in the water. And he uses a butt snorkel, right? We like to talk about those. And up here in the front, he has a very, very soft body, but he is an incredible predator. And he's got these 2 very long, thin mandibles that, they're not chewing mandibles. They actually pierce and then inject a digestive fluid, and they are used like straws, and they drink up their prey. So this is a water tiger. And so because it only has those 2 pixels high, and it has a very, very wide view of... a wide range of view. I'm going to use this kind of as an example. So if our water tiger could only see this strip of paper, what it does is it bounces up and down in the water, and when it's bouncing up and down in the water, it's actually kind of scanning its image or scanning its prey so that it has the ability to kind of see it in its full size, and it has a better opportunity, a better chance to attack and win. So, that is what I had for strength, because I feel like you have to have a whole lot of not only strength but courage to be able to live in a world where you can only see this much, and you have to bounce around to see everything. I do kind of love the idea of it being a little parasitoid. So, if we find a place that better fits this image, maybe we can switch out a little parasitoid wasp for strength. All right, so that's our Ace of Pentacles. Now that's got me thinking of interesting predatory larvae. Have you got antlions anywhere in here? I feel like you could make an argument for an antlion pit as the tower. Oh! I love that. My tower is a locust. I'll go ahead and show you the drawing I made of him. He's kind of scary looking. So this is my image of the tower. It's this really tall grasshopper's head, and you can see all of the detail in its mouth parts, and he's kind of gripping and holding this leaf and like eating it in front of you. And he's got lightning bolts in the background and a burning tower back here. So not only is he annihilating all of the crops, but the storage is, the silo is on fire. And so that's the tower that I had chosen. But you know what? I do not have an antlion yet. And I've been trying to decide which insect I would use as the fool. And I feel like, because the antlion isn't a fool for creating the web, for creating the thing, but the fool is all about kind of trust and innocence and open-mindedness. I don't know. Kind of staying open to surprises. I wonder, I kind of want to do an antlion for, I kind of want to do the antlion for the fool. Don't make all your decisions about your path or make assumptions about how it'll be before you embark. The Fool should be something very simple that has lots of potential, right? So, yeah. The Fool, you want it to be about, it can be about kind of starting a new beginning or starting a new adventure, but the card is kind of telling you to keep an open mind and stay innocent and kind of trust that the universe is going to do exactly what what's meant to happen. So the Fool kind of is a card that flips over. It's also a major arcana, and it flips over when the universe is trying to tell you to, like, fall into the universe's arms and, you know, maybe play the fool or be the fool in that. Go ahead and kind of trust. Don't try to make all of the decisions about your journey. Kind of just fall into it. That's the idea of the Fool. An egg that is lying under dead leaves waiting for spring. That is pretty foolish. Because people rake their leaves. Unfortunately, too many people rake their leaves and take all the buggies with them, and then they throw them in the trash cans, and that makes me sad. But I do kind of love that. So, an egg under leaves definitely aligns better. An egg under leaves, or even maybe a cocoon or a chrysalis. Because that's kind of like the ultimate journey or adventure. Whereas an egg of, like, an egg of a caterpillar, an egg of an insect, I guess it didn't have to fall into trust, but a chrysalis or a cocoon might have to kind of trust its surroundings. Oh, like a fritillary egg. Okay, you could totally argue a fritillary egg. And it would be kind of wonderful to have it like an egg at the base of a violet plant, because then you would actually know what we were talking about too. Right, so we got a little bit sidetracked with some of those major arcana, but I want to jump back to Pentacles and get kind of like refocused on Beetles. We did the Ace, which was the grub. Now we want to kind of move on or focus to the Two of Pentacles. Now, the Two of Pentacles, when I have seen it, the card is generally kind of like a juggler, and he's like juggling two pentacles. That's generally like the card, what the card looks like normally. But the Two of Pentacles represents adaptability and multitasking, and you know, juggling, so like dexterous movement. When this card appears, you have a lot to deal with, and you deal with it with ease and grace. So what they're talking about is when you find the Two of Pentacles, there might be a lot of things happening. You might be kind of juggling a bunch of stuff, but you are doing it well, and you are changing and multitasking in a way that is progressing you or making you wiser or stronger, those types of things. Because when we're talking about Pentacles, we're talking about strength or health or wiseness, you know, things that are of the real world. So that is going to be kind of the main symbol. But tarot cards are really interesting in that Sometimes they mean one thing, and sometimes they mean something completely different, just depending on kind of how you're reading the cards and how the card kind of hits you when you're reading it. So sometimes, instead of reading the Two of Pentacles as kind of you're juggling all of these things and you're making it work, it could, if you have other symbols in your reading, it could show that you're kind of doing a whole lot of busy work. And that maybe you're doing it to kind of ignore some of your emotions, or like you're staying so incredibly busy that you're doing really well, but maybe you're doing this to mask something else that's happening. And so that's our description for Two of Pentacles. Is there a chrysalis that is made up in the trees and then falls to the leaf litter? You know, I'm not sure. I was wondering about cossid cocoons recently. Cossidae are wood moths. They're called carpenter moths, and their caterpillars actually burrow into wood. And I did see a cocoon on the ground, and I was wondering if they came out of the tree, or if they fell out of the tree, or if it crawls out and then creates it. And I'm not sure which one. Like me doing dishes to avoid grading my midterms. That is totally a thing. The Two of Pentacles. If you're hearing any of the descriptions and you vibe with them, you know, that's also telling you something. So let's see. Is there a beetle out there that is multi-talented, is multitasking, while also maybe distracting itself? What if we did a squeaky beetle? What do we call those? We call those the quadra eye something or another. Give me a minute. It's milkweed, not milkweed. Is it a milkweed longhorn beetle? Yes. Tetraopes, not quad, tetra. Tetraopes tetrathelmis. I think this is the one I want to do. Let me check. I think... No, not this one. The goldenrod? I think so. So I think the one I want to do is the goldenrod longhorn beetle. That really pretty black and yellow striped beetle that sits on the goldenrod. And I'm thinking the reason why is because they are doing twofold. They are feeding and they're pollinating, right? So that's kind of like that's definitely a two. And we can have two of those beetles on our goldenrod branch, because goldenrods generally have a whole, they can have more than one of these longhorn beetles on them, especially if the beetles are, like, actively flowering and putting out all their pollen. So if we had just, like, a couple of branches here, and each of them had these, you know, series of yellow flowers on them, just as goldenrods do. Give me one moment. Doop, 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 doop. And then we'll probably have to bring a couple of them in, because goldenrods are super flowery. So I'm just gonna sketch these in there for now. And then we're gonna put a really quick, goldenrod longhorn beetle in here, I think, unless anyone else has a better idea for a Two of Pentacles, because I'm thinking it's a juggler. It's feeding on its food, and it's pollinating its plants. So it's doing multiple things, and it's doing it well, because it's covered with hairs, and so it has a really great ability to pollinate. It also could just be pollinating as a whole lot of busy work, because maybe it should be out looking for a mate. I'm not sure. There is such thing as a milkweed longhorn beetle. They are absolutely beautiful. We actually sketched one time, and their scientific name is Tetraopes tetrathelmis, and it means 4 eyes. So it's Tetraopes, meaning 4 eyes, and then tetrathelmis, and I'm not sure. I think thelmus also... Give me a minute. I'm going to look it up. Relating to the eye. Really, that's what I thought. This beetle is named 4 Eyes, 4 Eyes. That milkweed longhorn beetle. Because the antenna actually split the eye. So normally longhorn beetles have reniform eyes. So their antenna kind of cut into their eyes, and it makes their eyes kidney bean shaped. Where milkweed longhorn beetles, their antennae are right in the middle of their eyes, so they have a little bit of compound eye on top and a little bit of compound eye underneath, and they don't have any on the sides, which makes them have a split eye on either side. And so can you imagine being a poor longhorn beetle and having the name 4 Eyes, 4 Eyes in elementary school? Goldenrod soldier beetles. But they should be mating while feeding. Ooh. So the soldier beetles are a little bit different than the longhorn beetles. But you're totally right. They should be mating. You are totally right. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and give our... We're going to go... And this is going to be really quick, guys. Sorry about that. We're going to go ahead. We're going to go pronotum. And it's going to have the stripies. And then... I need the top and the bottom of the beetle. But what I need, I think, to make it look alright, we're gonna throw some legs in here. Trisha, you know better. I put 2 pairs of legs on the pronotum on accident. Whoops. It's like after sketching bugs all this time, I still every now and again put the leg in the wrong body part. So as long as we get that this beetle is this bright black and yellow striped, and that it has these long antennae and these compound eyes over here, and it's got these kind of, it's mostly black, but it's got these yellow stripes on it. And then there's going to be 2 of them. So if we put a second one, his head is going to be a little bit further back because he needs to be able to grip onto her while also, you know, curling his abdomen around. I don't know if I've ever actually drawn a mating pair of anything. So we're going to try and see what happens. Or a mating pair of beetles, at least. I think I've done flies or something flying, like a bee. I don't think that's horrible. Yes. Megasilene robineae sounds correct. Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of. That is the longhorn beetle that, oh, we call them locust spores. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about. I always just called it a goldenrod longhorn beetle. But yeah, it's, you know, common names and all that. So we've got the Two of Pentacles. And now he's really, juggling a whole bunch of responsibilities, because you're mating along with, in theory, I'm going to cover them in pollen. And almost, I think I might even make like a little bit of pollen in the air around them, because goldenrod really puts off a lot of pollen. And then it can almost be like the beetles are being overwhelmed by their task, or like soaking in the glory of all of the pollen. So depending on which way you decide to take the card that day, I think that a whole bunch of pollen floating around in the air would actually follow both symbols. So I am happy to put those in there. And so if we were going to add any of the symbology from the original card, we would... The Two of Pentacles is connected, if we're talking zodiac, is connected with Capricorn. So I might be able to fit that into the pollen. Could be cool. An infinity symbol. So that'll just happen. I'll throw that one in there somewhere. And then I can change the symbology of like the ocean and the boat to the pollen kind of floating in the air, I think. Yeah. And Jupiter. Okay. So that is our Two of Pentacles. Judging by the amount of both species I see on goldenrod, it could even be the goldenrod itself being overwhelmed by the amount of bugs it needs to feed. Yeah, true enough. And goldenrod also has two different types of galls. Goldenrod has a stem gall and a leaf gall. No. Has a stem gall and a... What do you call the gall that's on the very, very top? There are two different types of galls on goldenrod. Alrighty, so we are moving on to our Three of Pentacles. Alright, so the Three of... Sorry about the random sound effects. You know, every now and again, they just have to happen. So the Three of Pentacles... the original card appears to be kind of three people that are standing around and conversing. A lot of times you can, it kind of looks like it might be in a church, but it's like two people trying to talk and come up with a solution with a third person is generally the image of the original image of the Three of Pentacles. Now, the symbology behind it is a lot of times contribution, mentorship, planning, teamwork, those types of themes are represented in the Three of Pentacles. And so a lot of times when you see a Three of Pentacles, it's like a larger project is about to begin, and there's going to be multiple people or a whole bunch of individuals coming together to make something happen. Sometimes it can be like building a house or doing a barn raising, but it can also be just kind of the early stages of progress. So, I'm trying to think of some beetles, especially because we're on the Three of Pentacles, so it's gotta be three beetles too. And we want to have beetles that are kind of working together to get something complete or to get something finished. Now, something that I really would like, there's a beetle that I want to add to the deck, and that is the best beetle. Best beetles are unique in that they do care for one another. They have something like 11 unique sounds that they can make, and they feed their offspring. Like, the adult beetles will chew on rotting wood and partially digest it and regurgitate it into the baby beetles, into the grubs' mouths. Click beetles all clicking. Are there any social beetles? So, yeah, best beetles are what I can think of for sociality. And they're what we call semi-social. So, where they don't have individual jobs, they do communicate with one another. They chew tunnels into rotting wood, just like termites and ants do. They leave their babies in cells, just like an ant or a termite would. And actually, their grubs are really interesting because they are the only insect that I know of that have legs and they don't have 6. Best beetle grubs only have 4 legs. Best beetles for the win! Sounds like a plan. So I think what I'm going to do here, and best beetles are also very kind of grounded, and with the pentacles being related to Earth, you know, I'm trying to think of a lot of these grounded kind of beetles that work closely with the Earth. And best beetles chew on rotting wood, and they can break down some wood very quickly. So let's see. What I think the image is going to look like... I know. I'm going to make it so that we have kind of the top of the log up here. And then we're going to be able to see into the log. And maybe we'll make the entrance a little bit further over here. So we'll be able to kind of, there's this hole into the log, and I'm going to create kind of this little chamber. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one beetle. I'm going to have one beetle up here on the top, and then I'm going to have a grub and another adult beetle feeding it down here. Because then that'll be 3, and it's definitely, you know, teamwork. Things are happening. It's not like 2 people are asking a third person, but it's very much in the same theme of like teamwork and helping each other out. And they're the only beetles that I can think of that are semi-social. So let's see. I'm gonna pull up a... Sometimes I don't have all of these bug parts memorized, so I'm going to pull up an image of a best beetle for myself really quick. Because I know that they have really cool antennae, and I wanted to make sure I gave it to them. So, best beetles are wonderful little friends, and I actually have a pet best beetle upstairs. He's been hanging out with me all summer, and he just is still chewing on wood and squeaking and doing all the cute best beetle things. So best beetles have a horn up in the front of their head, and that is a super cute little horn, and it's the males and the females both have it, and so that's kind of a cool feature on them. The horn also kind of points forward rather than pointing up, so it comes out and goes over. They do have these kind of very powerful chewing mouth parts, and there's a whole lot of head in here. I'm going to have to look at a really close image of these guys, but that'll be fine. So then we've got this horn, and I believe, see, I think the horn comes off of the head, whereas in a lot of other beetles, the horn comes off of the pronotum. I believe in best beetles, the horn is actually coming off of the head of the best beetle, which is kind of cool. So it's like this. Something like that. And then we've got that pronotum right about here. Now, best beetles actually have a couple of different common names. Best beetles are also called patent leather beetles. And I think that that's because someone looked at the ridges or the striations on the best beetle's back and thought that it looked like a pair of shoes. Now, Now, they do stridulate, which means that they can make this kind of squeaky noise by rubbing their abdomen against the underside of their elytra. So that's close. You know, I'm trying to go pretty quickly, and I'm going to go back in and add some of the detail, but I want to get you guys to kind of know what about I'm thinking. And then the best beetle grubs are, they look very similar to many other grubs. They've got a head, they've got little eyes. Now, they do have a thorax with 3 segments. It's just that only their front two segments of the thorax have legs. And then the third pair doesn't at all. And this is not above its head. I was trying to make it so that it curled behind it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the chamber bigger. And I'm going to make the abdomen go off the page. Because that's fine. I'm allowed to cheat a little bit. And so then we've got our friend here. And this is our little baby. And our baby is going to be eating from another adult. Like this. Something like that. Don't laugh. They look like they're kissing each other, but that's okay because the mom is literally regurgitating into the baby's mouth. Aw, can we see your best beetle on Monday? Yes, of course I can bring my best beetle on Monday. And maybe if it squeaks loud enough, you can hear it squeak through the camera. I was just feeding it a couple of days ago, so I know that it's still alive and happy up there, at least as of a couple days ago. Although, keep in mind that it might be coming into the end of her lifespan, so I'm not sure how much longer the beetle will be around. So, hopefully she'll be around, still on Monday. Good morning, Chaos! So that's our 3 of Pentacles. I hope you're having a wonderful day, Chaos. Alright, now, moving on to the 4 of Pentacles. Now, originally, the 4 of Pentacles, I don't actually pull this card regularly. So some of the cards that I don't regularly pull or regularly interact with, I don't know them as well. So this card seems to be like a king or somebody who is wearing a crown, and he has 1 pentacle on his head, 1 that he is holding, and 2 that he is actually standing on. And he has a whole bunch of, like, a really big city in the background of him. And so, let's see, our 4 of Pentacles. Give me a minute. We're gonna, let's see. When this card is matter, okay, so, now that I've got a really quick reading on our 4 of Pentacles, let me go ahead and, write it here. So the king with the crown, it makes you think of a rhinoceros beetle. What is the symbology? So the idea behind the 4 of Pentacles is that you have kind of reached a point where you are feeling really secure with your resources, and you want to kind of hold still and hold tight on what you have control of right now. So, this is a king who is sitting in front of his, city, and he is holding all of what he owns, and he is protecting his money, his job, his time, his home, all of those things. And so, The idea behind the Four of Pentacles is this idea that you may have reached a point where, yes, you've got all of these great things, but you might be holding on to them a little bit too tight instead of kind of allowing your resources to be used and to go with the flow. So the idea is kind of, when you see this card, is to learn to grow while acquiring, rather than saying, I have what I want and I have what I need and this is all I want and now I'm not going to go anywhere, because you freeze yourself up that way. And so that's kind of the idea behind the Four of Pentacles, and what we're going for. So I'm trying to think of a beetle that we would see in a group of four that would be kind of clutching its own materials. Or like, somebody a beetle that doesn't want to be clean, maybe? Like a beetle who wants to, like, working on it. Still sounds like a dung beetle. Man, they all sound like dung beetles, and that's very true. Like, to me, that's what a dung beetle sounds like. There's gotta be another beetle that would be holding on tight to what they have, and they don't want to move on or change. They just want to stay where they are, and it reminds me of, like, burrowing grubs. But I don't really want to keep drawing grubs. The one we sketched a while back that eats dead things. Ooh! A dermested beetle. How morbid would it be to draw a card that was the Four of Pentacles that was two pinned insects next to each other, and each of them, I don't know what they are yet, two pinned insects next to each other, and then each of them has a dermestid on it. That's 4 insects. And those dermestid grubs are definitely kind of clutching and holding on to what they think is theirs, because they plan on eating these dead insects. And they don't want to move on or anything like that. But the other side of this card is that you need to kind of go with the flow more regularly. I don't know. That could be all right. Their domestics are clutching on, but you, the collector, are also holding on to things you've already collected instead of going on and discovering new things. Oh, that's so true! Because then you're actually playing with the symbology from 2 ways. The feelings of the domestics and that it's theirs, and the feeling of the person who made the collection is like, no, that is mine. And so maybe letting go of one thing to move on and make something better. That's such a sad story, but I think you're right. So, admittedly, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this sketch that I made here, and we're just going to move on from this one, because I've got a little bit of work to do, because I have to figure out what exactly we're pinning, but I'm going to say 2 pinned insects, and then, and then 2 dermestids. And those are definitely holding on to things that they own or possess. I think that that would be good. Don't be too proud of your collection and secure that you have it all, because the dermestids will get it eventually. Oh, that's so sad. It's true, but oh so sad. I just had another fight with some dermestids in my colony, in my collection. I lost a grasshopper to them. You know, sometimes you just can't help it. I guess I left my grasshoppers out for too long, and they got an egg in them or something, because I went back into the tank, and yep, we got nibbled on. So we are talking all about tarot symbology today. Thank you, all of you who are hanging out with us today. I see we've gotten actually a handful of viewers that are quiet out there. Feel free to join us and chit chat if you have any ideas, or if you agree or disagree with any of the symbology that we talk about. It's a whole lot of fun too. So we are moving on to the 5 of Pentacles. So keep in mind, as these numbers get bigger, that's the number of insects I'm also sketching on the paper. So we have a 5 of Pentacles that we're doing right now. And originally, this card it shows kind of 2 people who may be hurt or injured or homeless, and they're kind of walking out in the snow, and they're really like sad looking with their like heads down, kind of like fighting like a snowstorm, and they're walking by a stained glass window of what seems to be a church. And that is the description of the original card. So that's the story of the original card. Chaos, I just want to connect you with this. Because we're doing Pentacles, we're trying to make all of the cards be different types of beetles. Because Pentacles are closely related to Earth and the ground, and figured beetles are really good for that suit. Kind of earthy, ground-dwelling insects. Oh, I love that. That's definitely a Disney song. Now I need to sing it. Oh my goodness, you're going to see me do a TikTok of that. That's going to be hilarious. Maybe one day. Alright, so 5 of Pentacles. When this card appears, your sense of security is threatened. Alright, the 5 of Pentacles generally shows instability, maybe illness, maybe you've lost the support of your friends, or you're being alienated from your family, or maybe it's just you're thinking you have like scarce thoughts, or you just have like a lack of security essentially, and that's what the 5 of Pentacles means when it kind of shows up. You may actually lack resources that you need. Health may be preventing you from securing your material sources. Keep in mind, the Pentacles is all about material goods and things that are in real life. So the card is all about, the lesson that's learned is that you're not alone. So, when you're in like times of need, generally people are going to reach out to you, or you can pursue spiritual practices. That's that church that's in the background is relating to kind of spiritual practices. I actually had an idea while I was reading these. So the 5 of Pentacles is all about kind of lacking the resources that you need and maybe being anxious that you're not going to be able to meet the ones that you have. What if we did Death Watch beetles? Not Death Watch beetles. No, that's not right. There is a beetle that's a wood-boring beetle that has a super, super, super long lifespan. And it was named after a guy in the Bible that was reborn. Or that slept like the dead. Death Watch beetles are the ones that click softly in the rafters. Yes. And I'm trying to think about Lazarus. Maybe it's not Lazarus. I thought that's what it was. So, I know what beetle I want to sketch. I'm just not sure exactly what its name is. And it's a beetle that it has a very, very, very long lifespan. And so it takes a really long time for it to mature, which means it has a lack of resources. And it takes so long to mature that sometimes people will take down a tree, process the wood, create a table or a shelf out of it, and then later the beetles emerge. Methuselah. Yes, that's what I was looking for. That's the one I wanted. It's called the Methuselah beetle. Maybe that's not the actual common name. Give me a minute. I'm going to get you the scientific name. That'll be helpful for you. I think it's a type of... It might be another type of longhorn beetle. It lives in its larval form in dead wood for 35 to 50 years. Alright, so instead of spending my time Googling and trying to figure out the scientific name of this beetle, I do know a little bit about it. So, it lives in trees, and actually what I'm going to do for my Five of Pentacles here is I'm going to draw kind of the edge of a bookshelf. This is going to be funny. So it's going to be it's going to come out like this. And this is the edge of our bookshelf, and then the books are going to be kind of facing in this direction. And they'll probably be entomology books, you know, as you would expect. And then, it's the Five of Pentacles. And you know what? Because why not? It is the number 5. We're making 5 insects. It is a pentacle. So why don't we just go ahead and make the emergence holes in the in a pentagram, in a star-shaped form. So emergence hole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of. I mean, it's a stretched one. There we go. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. But then, so we have our emergence holes here. Go ahead and kind of, the beetles will likely be a little bit smaller. And I'll just make sure that I look up exactly, you know, what this species looks like. But I'm just imagining these beetles crawling out of this wood. Because what they're talking about was lack of resources, but also, you know, once you do successfully find them, then someone will help you out. But here, our poor beetles, didn't have, they kind of were lacking in resources a little bit, and so it took them a little bit longer to develop, and then by the time they developed, they were no longer in the woods. They found themselves in somebody's kitchen. And they were like, hey, wait a minute. It's been 40 years since I emerged from this tree here. And a lot has changed. And then they just try to get out. But then people are like, oh no, I've got an infestation. And you're like, no, you've got these beautiful beetles that have been alive longer than you have. They've just been hanging out in your furniture for a little bit of time. For a decade or so. Methuselah. Alright, so, you know, boring beetles are quite unfairly named. I, for one, think they are quite interesting. I love that statement, Susan. For one, because I totally agree. I think that wood-boring insects can be really, really interesting. And one of the beetles that we should really make a space for is a bark beetle. They carry they carry spores of a tree fungus, a tree mold. They carry the spores of tree mold underneath their elytra so that once they emerge, once they bore into the tree, they can release the fungus, and then the fungus also attacks the health of the tree, and it is symbiotic. It helps the beetle survive there, and it weakens the tree, so the babies survive easier too. And so that's a really interesting interaction between beetles and trees, and I want to fit bark beetles in here somewhere. We're going to do it. Alrighty, our Six of Pentacles. Wow, a lot has changed since my egg got laid. They've got high-speed internet. I love that. Yeah, I mean, 50 years later, too much time it would have been passed. It's like Fern Gully was just a little bit too late, you know? Emerged out of the wood after it became furniture. So the Six of Pentacles shows a man who is holding a scale, like a balancing scale, and he is giving money out to the poor. And the idea behind the Six of Pentacles is that you are giving and receiving, and there's a balance. That you have, that you are generous, and that you have been giving to charity, and that those things that you have given out, you will also be reserving back, just to keep all of the universe and the energies like balanced and aligned. The Six of Pentacles is all about sharing your wealth and keeping it all balanced. And so the card may be telling you, the card may be saying like, hey, thanks for doing all of these great things, if you know that like those are stuff you've been doing. But if you feel like it might be telling you something, it could be telling you to say, hey, like maybe you should help somebody out. Maybe if you do that, you're gonna see positive things coming back to you. So if you're kind of feeling exhausted or tired, and you get this Six of Pentacles, instead of having been giving out, maybe you should reconsider what you're expecting from situations, look at what you are giving to the situation, and kind of try and even those scales or even the balance out. So that's what this Six of Pentacles is all about. About keeping a relationship fair and keeping resources shared and being charitable and generous with others. And admittedly, I don't know what beetle I would say is balanced like that. Ooh, something ecological maybe. A beetle whose actions benefit other parts of the environment. Like... Ooh. Back to the dung beetles. I know! They're all dung beetles. So we're just going to make a whole tarot deck. That's the dung deck. And we'll just have dung beetles in different positions and doing different things. It all relates back to the dung beetles. Now, so I'm going to pull out this Beetles by Art Evans book, and I'm going to scroll through it really quick just to see if it kind of triggers any ideas. So... Yeah, I agree. I think that it is crazy how many cards would go ahead and go back and relate to dung beetles. When I'm flipping through my book, I'm just gonna flip through it underneath the camera so that you can see what I'm seeing. I was checking out some of these like leaf beetles and other things. So we're trying to think about some beetles that are all about giving balance. And I imagine beetles as more destructive than giving balance. Ladybugs! Balance out aphids. I could draw something like a ladybug, an aphid, and an ant on that card, because the aphid is giving to the ant and the ladybug is trying to eat the aphids. That is kind of a balance. There has to be a balance between those three relationships in the real world. I could almost get behind that, although I'm not sure how I would get six insects into that unless I did multiple ladybugs kind of flying towards the situation. Or maybe multiple aphids, because aphids would be what, oh, sorry, was my book hitting the microphone? Were you hearing the ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom? So I'm just looking at some of these beetles, like fungus beetles and troglodytids, and those are soldier beetles, and these are different types of click beetles. We haven't done any click beetles yet. I feel like click beetles have to come up at some point. Buprestids are something that we haven't gotten to yet, but they're jewel beetles. I feel like with a jewel beetle, that might be a queen or a king, because I feel like even though they're destructive, I think they are also beautiful and covered in jewels and gems, which is symbology in the crowns of the queens and the kings. And obviously the scarabs, rove beetles, carrion beetles. The burrowing beetles are what I was thinking. and hydrophilids. This guy is funny. This is a type of ground beetle, and he has this really, really thin pronotum, and he almost looks like a violin. You see that? They're native to, this says they're native to Connecticut and New York, down to Florida and west to Louisiana. So I could find these where I live, and I've never seen one before, and I want one. Beautiful scarab beetles. Some are ground beetles. Some ground beetles are absolutely beautiful because they are this really pretty metallic colors. And they can be anything from metallic blue, purple to green, red, yellow. They have all of the metallic colors. And obviously we're going to have to fit tiger beetles in here somewhere too. So, I mean, we have a series of beetles that we have to fit in. It's just figuring out where exactly they fit. So, with the Six of Pentacles, we're talking about balance. You like ladybugs for it. Yeah, 6 beetles and not 6 just insects in general. So with that 4 of Pentacles, making sure that the 2 insects that are on the pins are also beetles. Probably beautiful beetles, so that there is some type of loss in relation to the dermestids. So if we're talking about the 6 of Pentacles and we want to do 6 beetles, we could go ahead. What I think of when I think of aphids and ladybugs and ants, I think of milkweed aphids, because those are kind of the more common aphid in my region. So maybe what I would do is just kind of sketch a really elongated leaf like this that would kind of be connected to the plant past the edge of the card. And then we have a number of aphids. And if we don't want like one, we could always just kind of sketch multiple aphids on here in like a little cluster of them. And if we don't need the other insects, what we could do is just leave the aphids, and we could maybe put 2 aphids, maybe 3 aphids. So the important characteristic on the aphids are the butt pipes. They're called cornicles. Alright, so we've got 3 aphids hanging out here on the leaf. And then we want to be talking about the balance. But here's the thing. If I just do aphids and then I put ladybugs on here, then I don't have any relation to charity or giving back or being generous, which was the aphids giving to the ants. That was kind of our piece that was charitable. And I guess that brings it back to, is it still a pentacle card if half of the meeting is existing outside of beetles? And then the idea maybe would be that the ladybugs were kind of flying in. Don't mind my really quick flying beetles. What do you think? Milkweed aphids are nice and bright. They're that really, really bright orange color. That's true. They don't really need to be super, super detailed. You think it needs to be the beetles being charitable? Yeah, and that's what I think too. The beetles, I have to come up with a way to make the beetles charitable, not Like, the beetles in this situation are coming to eat the aphids, right? So that is not the beetles being nice. We'll probably use that sketch at some point, but not on this card. We need charitable beetles. We need a charitable beetle. We need... Oh, the name of the butt pipes, they are called cornicles. That's the name of the butt pipes on aphids. So our charitable beetle is going to be... Are there any beetles that we gain something from? Like a material that, like, are there any beetles that we use for dyes? Or maybe, because I know cochineal, but those are true bugs. I'm wondering if there are any beetles... charitable beetles. What about... No, I don't really want to do jewel beetles because I think I want to do a jewel beetle for the king or the queen. Is there a beetle that has mass emergences and die-offs, kind of like a 17-year cicada? Their bodies providing food for the whole ecosystem. Is there a beetle that mass emerges? Is there a beetle that mass emerges? Not that I can think of. Unless it was something that was invasive. See, I can think of a bunch of negative beetles. Like there's the bark beetles that carry the fungus. But that's not charitable. That's rude to bring a disease or a fungus into the tree. You know, staphylinids work with detritus, so like dead and dying plants. We are trying to find an example of a beetle that is charitable. Or a beetle that holds balance. Assists, gives back. Is there a beetle that gives us anything? Man, guys. I feel like a pollen... Alright, so... We had our Two of Pentacles was this longhorn beetle, and it was mating, but also it was pollinating. And the thing is that the positive thing that I can think of that beetles are going to do is they're going to pollinate. So a lot of people don't think of beetles as pollinating, but that's something that they regularly do, especially the ones that are very fluffy. Now... You also have big longhorn beetles that emerge. You know, you do have some big longhorn beetles that do kind of mass emerge, and they feed bats. Oh, those are kind of creepy. They're the Prianus longhorn beetles. We might be able to do those. Prianus is the genus that they're in. They're very large longhorn beetles. They're large beetles, but they have shorter antennae in comparison to their body. But these beetles are like 2.5 almost 3 inches long. They're very large beetles. And when they come out, they do kind of mass emerge. If you find them in an area where they're emerging, and there's a lot of them, you can find a dozen of them in a night, going to just a handful of gas stations. And there was one time I was at a gas station, and I was collecting these Prianus longhorn beetles, and I found one. I was all excited, and from the top, it was a head and an antenna and mouth parts, and I could see the elytra. But when I picked it up, and it had all its legs, but when I picked it up, it was completely missing its abdomen. Its mouth was moving, it was trying to walk, but it was like a zombie beetle. It was really kind of spooky looking, but it was because some bat or large bird ate it out of the air, and it nommed on the abdomen and let everything else fall to the ground. Wild. So I could argue that the Six of Pentacles could be the Prianus longhorn beetles, because they do kind of give back to their environment. Admittedly, that puts 3 longhorn beetles in the Pentacles, so I might want to try and rework that, but we'll do it for now. Prianus longhorn beetles are known for having these like really big mandibles too. They're kind of scary looking beetles. And then the edges of their pronotum are generally kind of spiked and sharp on the edges. And so a lot of times when you're picking up a longhorn beetle, you don't want to pick it up, like too far back, because they're kind of slippery and they can kind of turn around in your hands. A lot of times you want to kind of grab them by the pronotum so they can't turn on you and they can't kick you with their legs. But with Prianus, they make it a little bit more difficult, because the spines on their pronotum are actually pretty dang sharp. And so then they've got these eyes. They're reniform, so they're kind of kidney-shaped. And then from these notches, that's where the antennae come out. And this one is close and hanging out with us. But then, so that's what I'm going to do with this 6, because I'm not going to be drawing 6 of these beetles. What I'll do is I'll draw one that's really close, and then it'll be less detail, but I will have 5 more of them kind of flying around in the background. And I might even, if I put 5 more, you're going to laugh at me, I'm going to make them look like planes! Just for now. Alright, so if I have 5 beetles kind of flying in the background, there's a part of me that kind of wants to have one bat, just like swooping towards one. Yummy! And maybe the echo radar, so that it's noticeable. Cool. So I am pretty happy with that. You could use buprestids. Their elytra have been used to decorate clothing. I kind of love that too. But I really, I want to hold out for the buprestids, but admittedly, I guess I've got multiple longhorn beetles, so I could also do multiple buprestids. Alright, it is 11:30. My thinker is slowing down. We have gotten 7 cards figured out tonight together, and I am pretty happy with that at this moment. I do want to finish going over and talking about the major arcana cards, and if it wouldn't totally break your heart, I wouldn't mind skipping these guys, but I'd hate to break your heart. You should search for beetle wing embroidery in any case. Of course I will! Sometimes I just don't, sometimes I'm not looking up at the, oh, that's beautiful. Wow. I have never seen that before. It's gorgeous. I had heard of jewel beetles being used for jewelry, like necklaces and earrings and brooches and those types of things. But I'd never seen the elytra. I'd never seen the elytra sewed directly onto the fabric. This one's beautiful. All right, I'm in love with a good number of these. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with me. All right. So I did kind of want to show you what I was thinking for the backs of the cards. This was a really quick sketch that I did. I don't know. It probably took me like 3 minutes. So it's not what it's going to look like exactly. But the idea is that I want to put a moon back there. And I would like to... We've got bipectinate antenna. And something like that. And then wee. And wee. And wee. Lunamoth! I love Lunamoths. And I feel like they would be a good kind of card to put on the as like the back of the cards. And then you've got kind of the moon, and it's feeling very astrological. And I might even, there's a part of me that really likes to add music notes when I'm sketching Lunamoths in front of the moon. And I'm not sure why, but it always feels like so magical to me that I want to add music to it. And maybe even like some rest stops and stuff. And so there's a part of me that really wants to kind of make the backs of the cards look a little bit like that. Let's go over the other major arcana that I have sketched out, and we'll talk about those. And then we'll see how everybody is feeling, I guess. So I like switching the Fool over to Fritillary Egg and Violets. I think that is a super cool idea. And I'm going to have to put notes on these cards where you guys helped me out. You like that a lot. Oh, that's good. Thank you. All right. So, for the card of Judgment. Judgment took me a while to figure out because they're talking about maturing and transitioning and reviewing what you have done and releasing and moving into like the next stage. Judgment is also kind of a rite of passage, so it's like you go to be judged and then you move forward. You wanna, when you see Judgment, you wanna kind of look objectively behind you and in front of you and kind of just get your bearings. So my thought process was a cicada because they have kind of the ultimate rite of passage where they spend what, like 13 or 17 years underneath the ground, and then they finally kind of mature and climb up the trees. Sometimes Judgment is asking you to kind of also tune into a higher calling. And I think the cicadas are doing that literally, because they are climbing up and they are going to emerge and fly away. And so just looking at what has passed and moving through a drastic change to mature. So yes, a cicada. Exactly. There has to be a cicada. And so there are so many insects that I'm like, that wasn't I didn't add true bugs as an order. And so I needed to fit them into the major arcana. All right, the High Priestess. Like I said, when I sketch Luna moths, I like to add music notes, but I did not add music notes to this one. I added rest stops. All right, and that is symbolic of taking your time in silence and resting and paying attention to your dreams for the High Priestess. This is all about being receptive to a higher calling, connecting to your spirituality. If you're not already there, this card could be asking you to go and meditate and maybe to even listen to your dreams. So that's what our beautiful High Priestess means, and the Luna moth that it is. I think we talked about the devil already, but we're going to talk about it again. This is a crazy grub. It's called a Blepharocerity. I will give you my best attempt at spelling that, because I'm not going to Google it, but I believe it's Blepharocerity. But then one of those A's may be an E. I can't remember. And so that's going to be the family of this aquatic grub. And it literally lives in waterfalls. It has suction cups on the bottom of its body, and they suction cups themselves to rocks in waterfalls. The devil, symbolically, it's not about evil, and it's not about all of these bad things that are going to happen. The devil refers to, like, very, very strong commitments or super, super strong attachments. Those attachments are limiting you. And so a lot of times when we see the devil, we're not talking about like something that's evil or something that bad is going to happen, but more like something is restricting you, something is holding you back. You are committed to a thing, and that thing may be good, but it may also be dangerous, and it's limiting you. And so I added this Blepharocerid because it is literally chained or suction cupped to the waterfall. And I just went ahead and added a chain to it too, so that symbolically you could see that, like, hey, this guy is not going anywhere. And that is the devil. All right. The moon I have as our black witch moth. The moon a lot of times symbolizes your unconscious or your shadow self. So your shadow self is that it's kind of like your darker being, like your darker self. A lot of like negative energies and negative emotions come from a shadow self. You can actually go ahead, and there's like all different ways that you can meditate and kind of speak to yourself and try and meet your shadow self. But the moon is supposed to resemble that, and sometimes when you see the moon come up, it's just the tarot cards asking you to kind of seek answers within before chasing them externally. Also wanting you to pay attention to your dreams and your intuition and those types of things. But sometimes growing takes facing your fears and moving through things that have been affecting you since you were a child. That's what the moon's about. Yep, there we go. Death. That's so awesome. I just had a student who found a black witch moth a couple of days ago, and I was so jealous because it had these beautiful wings. And the only time I've ever seen a black witch moth, it was so tattered that I didn't collect it. It just wasn't even, it wasn't even worth being in a collection. It was so tattered, but it was still happy and flying around. So it was doing its thing and laying eggs and starting the next generation. It was just too late in the season, I think, for me. So Death, I had placed as this Death's head. He wants to talk about transformation and getting rid of what's not useful and seeking closure and moving forward. Death is all about kind of freeing up stagnant energy, kind of trying to move forward through thingamajigs. Hi, Rambo. Nice to meet you. We are going through major arcana that I've sketched on the tarot card. We're talking about some of the symbology behind them, and then we are heading off. It's been a while. Yeah. Oh, good. Susan, are you talking about death? That death should be a cordyceps? You might be right. I just really wanted death to be a death's head sphinx moth because there was a skull on it, admittedly. But symbolically, I could totally see where a cordyceps fungus or an entomologist fungus in general would be great for the card death. I might have to think about that. Maybe the entomologist fungus. Well, we'll think about that. You know, there definitely will be a place for an entomologist fungus in here somewhere. And you're right. I feel like the cordyceps fungus would be a really good tower too. I'm so happy with my tower right now. I'll have to figure it out. We'll have to shift things around a little bit. No, I don't think so. Alright, so, we are looking at the Hanged Man. With Hangman, you're talking about surrender and new perspective and sacrifice, and the Hanged Man would also have been a decent one for that cordyceps fungus. But I have our tobacco hornworm that has all of these parasitoid fly pupae on it, and it's hanging upside down because it's the Hanged Man. I did. You didn't see any of that. Yes, Susan, I did block that person. You didn't see any of the other comments that I deleted before they made it to the Alas, we're trying to keep our chat friendly, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you love this. The Hanged Man? Yeah, so I think that the Hangman fits really well with that. Thank you. We've talked about the lovers. These are beetles in the genus Melanophylla. My vowels are messing with me today. I believe it's this way. Are your comments stuck in moderation? I see your comments, Susan. I don't see any that are stuck in moderation. Generally, I'll see them if I do. Which comments, are you not seeing? So these are the lovers. And And the lovers are in the genus Melanophylla. They are fire-loving beetles, or fire-chasing beetles. And these beetles, they have heat sensors, and they can sense each other from an incredible distance. They can sense forest fires from miles away. And then they fly towards the fire rather than away from the fire. And they sit at the edges of the smoldering fire, and they mate amongst, like, the fallen trees and the smoldering ashes. And then the females lay their eggs into the still hot logs. All right? So firefighters will go out into the field to, keep putting out the fire, and they'll have these swarms of mating beetles on the ashes. And they're like, what is this? What is happening? And those are the lovers. They are all about cooperation and sexuality and aligning your heart and your head and celebrating passion and all of those things. The lovers. The last comment I can see is death is about transformation. Everything else is not appearing. Huh. I can see it on my side, Susan. So I don't know why it's not appearing on your side. My guess is that your computer isn't... If we had another person chatting, they could say if they were able to read your comments too. I can definitely see them. I don't know where they would be going. The Hierophant is a teacher. It speaks of, like, conscious responsibility and knowledge. And I figured that this could be kind of like an ant and queen ant and her eggs. Because the eggs of ants, right when those grubs hatch, that is actually when they learn. They learn the smell of their own hive the moment that they hatch from the egg, and not the moment before. So, if you take the eggs and you kind of switch them out, I believe you can trick them into being, like, raised by a different colony, because the eggs only imprint on the grubs after they hatch from the eggs actually learn the scent of their colonies. Oh, and that they're kind of like Adam and Eve, and that they're kind of coming to a very reborn place. I do love that. Yeah, and the Lovers is one of those cards that while I was sketching it, I was feeling, like, very, motivated? I don't know. I was feeling really good when I was drawing this card, and a lot of times when I'm, like, feeling excited about sketching the card and the ideas are flowing really freely, I end up liking the card better. We talked about strength today already. We talked about the Emperor being the dung beetle. We have talked about the Empress here. That is a honeybee, queen. Temperance. So I'm going to quick go through these because I believe we've gone through all of these. I just wanted to hit the ones that we didn't talk about, but I think... Alright, these two are the ones we haven't talked about. And this one, maybe. And that one. Okay. Alright. I flipped over to ones we haven't talked about yet. So this is the Chariot. The Chariot I thought would be really cool because it's not actually the bee, but the triungulin larva. This is a blister beetle larvae that has jumped a ride on a bee and is on its way back to the hive. The Chariot is all about having self-discipline and control, also having determination and taking control of your life while staying focused on a goal. So it's all about harnessing your resources and not getting thrown off course. And I thought, that's perfect. We are going to have a little itty bitty baby triungulin riding on a honeybee as the chariot. So that's the chariot. We have, is that called phoresis? Normally, it is called phoresis. Yes. So when an insect is carrying another insect and it's phoretic, that means that it's not going to be causing any damage. It's just hopping a ride. Whereas this chariot, she is on her way to the hive to eat the babies. So this one is not phoretic. This one is actually, I don't know what we would call it. Predatory? I don't know what you would call it. This one is heading back to the colony to eat the babies, whereas a phoretic mites, or what I think of a phoretic insect, is like a pseudoscorpion that jumps a ride on a beetle just to jump a ride and then come off a little bit later, so for the travel and for the distance. And I think my guess is that there's probably a different word or a different phrase if it is dangerous for the animal rather than just like riding for funsies. So that is the chariot. Now, this is the Wheel of Fortune. It is the life cycle of, I believe I was going for the monarch butterfly, just because, you know, when people are first learning about complete life cycles, I feel like the first insect you learn about is the monarch butterfly. Now, the Wheel of Fortune is all about taking action and doing movement and and changing and expanding and kind of following life's path for you. So the Wheel of Fortune is all about kind of like, you may not have control over the path, but you do have the opportunity to react and respond to that path. So there are all types of symbols around the edges of the Wheel of Fortune. We've got wings and a sword, we have a sphinx, we have an eagle and a lion, and these are all things that were on the original Wheel of Fortune card, but I really wanted to add my own little insect thing, and I figured we didn't have a life cycle yet, and that would definitely be kind of a major arcana or a major thing that you learn about when you're learning about insects, and so the Wheel of Fortune. A life cycle. Oh, nice morning glory. Thank you. You noticed. I appreciate that. I don't think that I'm always the best at sketching plants. I definitely feel like I need more practice with them. But I think it's just because I'm more comfortable sketching insects. You could replace the lion with an antlion just for funsies. That's true, and my lion doesn't look too lion-esque. And you know what's funny? Where is it? I think I did that once. Yeah, here. So we'll go ahead and we will move from the Wheel of Fortune, that's kind of this life cycle that talks about movement and taking action and following your destiny, but also knowing that you have a path to follow and it's how you react to it that is kind of where your life goes. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about, because I laughed about it, is the world. Now, you said I should replace the lion with an antlion, and you see right here, I totally did that. So in on the world, I'm gonna go ahead and look up this card really quick because I want to remember exactly what it looks like. There it is. So the world So the original card is like a singular person who is inside this wreath, and then they've got kind of 4 clouds around them, and they all have symbolic meaning, which is a man, an eagle, a Taurus, and a lion. And I changed those. I looked up the symbology of those animals, and I changed them over to a dragonfly's head, a termite queen, an antlion, and an angel. And then this right here that was originally a wreath in the card are longhorn antenna. So this is actually the eyes and the head of a beetle. So the world is all about integration and completion, kind of having a wholeness and a connection and a connectedness in your world. And so it's kind of like taking all of the lessons that you've learned and stepping forward and moving on. Like, we have all of these things with us, and they are all a part of us, and they are part of the whole. And this could mean like, all right, we have won and we're ready to move on to the next step. It could be like you've graduated and you are ready to move on to the next phase of your life. It could be telling you to kind of look behind you and look at things that you have been doing and things that you want to do, and kind of look at endings and beginnings and the totality of your environment. That's what the world is trying to talk to you about. And so there's a whole bunch of different insects and different meanings, and they're all being circled within this like longhorn antenna. And I tried to stay very close to the symbology in the cards, so the cards look pretty similar, but you're also talking about each of these as an individual. What do you call that kind of antenna? I would call these antenna. I want to call them so I would call them serrate. But they're not truly serrate. That's why I'm trying to think of, admittedly, I'm not sure what I would call these antennae. I would not call them filiform, because filiform, you have your antennal segments that are kind of either straight with each other, and there's some separation between the segments, or it's long and thin, and you've got very little differentiation between the segments. Now, these, if you have a serrate antenna, you have these spines coming off the edges, but a lot of times serrate antenna only have the serrations on the one side, and these are special antenna from a longhorn beetle, and it almost, if I was going to make up a word, I would call them biserrate. Because it's like having these serrate antenna, but then it's like the serrations are coming off of either side, and they're just going a little bit longer. You see that? And so this might be closer to what the antennae actually look like than these that are kind of laying more flat. Maybe they should be out a little bit, but I was hoping that you could kind of see the points on there. So I would call them serrate. And if I was allowed to make up a word, I would call them biserrate. And I'm not even sure if that is an antennal type, but that's what I would call them. Serrate. I didn't spell serrate right. Yes, I did. It is 2 R's. So if the question is filiform or something else, the answer is something else. justice is all about fairness and balance and ethics and law and equality and actions having fair consequences and logical thinking, and all of those things are in this justice card. So when you're flipping it over, it could be symbolizing that you have balance in your life. It could be talking about a balance in your life in association with other cards. You may be giving you the message that you should take time to kind of recenter yourself. Maybe you have gone a little bit off balance. And so this one actually came right to me. I was pretty happy about it because I imagined this scale, and I put two humans over here, a boy and a girl, and I put an ant on this side. And this represents the biomass of ants being equivalent to the biomass of humans. Now, I can say that, and it can be like, wow, did you know? But here's the thing. I think it makes a bigger impact when you start small. Say, all right, can you imagine enough ants, like enough ants to equal your own body weight? How many ants, it's like, how many ants do you think would it take to equal just your own body weight? And then imagine how many ants it would take to make the body weight of your own family. And then maybe the people in your city. And then the people in your country. And then imagine how many ants it has to take to make the biomass of ants pretty equal to the biomass of humans on the planet. And this is a true statement. The biomass of ants is generally accepted as fairly equivalent to the biomass of humans on planet Earth. So the weight of all the insects in the world far outweighs the weight of all humans. Totally very true. So the weight of all insects way outweighs the weight of humans. But ants equal us. Yeah, you got there. So that is justice. The sun. This is, well, obviously you can see there's a sun here. This is a diving beetle, and admittedly, the diving beetle is not going to be swimming by the sun, but it's just a symbolic card. This is what we call a sunburst diving beetle. The species is Thermonectus marmoratus. Yes, it's a diving beetle. Yep, so that is our diving beetle, and it's got this wall over here, which is just symbology that's in the card. Now, the sun generally represents enthusiasm and playfulness and clarity and sharing your feelings and not being afraid to shine and play and be creative and have authentic energy and just like shine with joy, right? And diving beetles, sunburst diving beetles are so cute, and they swim around in the water, and they zoom around all over the place, and I can just imagine how much fun it would be to be a diving beetle, swimming around the water like that. So that's what it's all about, and I mean, enthusiastic beetle for the win here. Yes, a giant diving beetle swimming through space. Exactly. So, you know, that's our beautiful diving beetle. Alrighty. Now, we have the star. Yes, the star of the show. And there are a couple of different flowers that were attempted down here. I'm probably going to have to clean them up just a little bit. Man, fighting the spam bots today is a rough one. Sorry about that, guys. So, yeah, no problem. It's exciting, right? So, this is the star. The star is all about optimism and renewal and peace. It's about having trust in the universe and that all things are always changing. It's about staying calm and healing and staying still. And it's important to, pay attention to the cosmos when you find the star. All right. So, let's see. Sorry, I got distracted. Now, I was thinking, yes, this is a mayfly. You can see that her front legs are very much held up and kind of pointing at this bird that's kind of swimming through. Now, I was actually thinking that this is a teneral mayfly. So, this is an interesting side story. So this is an interesting side story because our teneral mayflies are just brandly emerged. They are freshly emerged, beautiful mayflies, and they don't have. They have wings, and they're one of the only insects that I can think of that even after they emerge and have their wings, they will actually shed and molt one more time. So mayflies, they'll become this teneral adult. They have wings, but they are also going to be shedding one more time. And then they will have their final wings, and they can have the ability to go off and they can fly. Now, if you were talking about optimism and being renewed, that's kind of what I was thinking with the mayfly, because they come out as an adult and they are fully adult. They have these wings and everything, but they need to be renewed or go through this process and kind of trust in this change that's going to happen that is not common for other insects, but definitely common for mayflies. And so that is why I chose mayflies for the star. You saw this happening. They were already winged, and they were shedding all over the pumps. That is so cool! You definitely should have nature journaled at the pump. That is a really, really awesome thing that you saw. So, yeah, I don't know if I've actually ever seen the teneral mayflies shedding, but I know that they do, and they all do. And so they mass emerge out of the water, and their wings are still wet, and then they shed again. And so that's this whole story. And she's actually standing in a cup of water. She's looking at the birds and the stars and the mountains and the challenges, but she is healing, and she's staying calm, and she's trusting in the universe that this is exactly what's supposed to be happening. And that's the star. Star of the show. Temperance. Temperance is all about combining and creating and experimentation. And this is Drosophila, the fruit fly that had its genetics done. And a lot of high schoolers will use them in experimentations and those types of things in the classroom and in the science room. And so that is where I'm finding that. They also will ask you to kind of integrate and find some balance in life. And so that is what temperance is all about. I know we've seen that one before. The Magician! I think this was on the first day that we talked about tarot. We talked about the Magician really quickly. But this is a real-life Burmy. Burmy is a Pokemon. This is a bagworm caterpillar that is actually a cocoon now. It's closed up and it's pupating. And I called him the Magician because he has the potential to make things happen, right? He uses his surroundings and he uses his resourcefulness and his will to go and hide in plain sight. And so the idea behind this card is that you want to empower. The universe is kind of like empowering you to go and manifest your vision. Like, go out and do the thing, even if you have to use a variety of resources from around you. So the idea is that, and this is actually the number 1 card, and so it has a very similar vibe as an ace, in that, yes, you've got these potentials to make things happen, but you have to go out and grasp it through intention and action, is what the Magician is telling you, right? The Magician doesn't just wake up in this case. He uses his resources and actively finds it and puts it all together and works it through and then finalizes a vision. And finally, the Hermit. Now, the Hermit, this embodies a person who may be wise, who is introspective, and who really enjoys their own solitude or their own individualism. A lot of times when we find the Hermit in a reading, you're kind of craving for a retreat. Maybe you just want to kind of curl up in a ball and watch Netflix all day. The idea is that it might be okay. You might need to go and curl up on the couch, but take that time to also seek answers from within you, and not to just don't just go and hold yourself off from the world, but go and find your inner light. And or if you are having a hard time, find the guidance of a counselor or a mentor. The Hermit says, like, hey, you might be feeling the need to kind of seclude yourself a little bit, and that's okay, as long as you are also using that time of seclusion as time to refresh and think back and strengthen yourself from within. And if those things are not happening while you are in the Hermit stage of things, you need to go out and find somebody, whether that is a real counselor or a friend who can mentor you and kind of show you the way. So that's our Hermit. And this is a caddisfly grub. He's in the family Helicopsychidae. And this guy collects rocks from all over the bottom of a riverbed, and he uses his silk on his face to silk the rocks together, and he makes a case that looks like a snail shell. And they are pretty much the cutest thing. Does using that time to learn about cool bugs count as finding my inner light? Sure. Especially if you are learning or advancing. You know? Like, those things are also important, right? While we are resting and relaxing, it's also important to know that, like, hey, we need to stay. So these are real-life examples of Helicopsychid cases, and so you can see they collect rocks from all over, and they're all different colors, but they make these really beautiful spirals. And they're one of my favorite caddisflies, so they needed to call out. But there are all different types of really cool caddisflies out there in the world. All right, that was my last major arcana card. Wowzers! All right, Susan, I feel like you have now seen all of the major arcana cards that I have. I've went through them all today, I believe. Yep. Yep, I went through them all today. And so really the only cards that we didn't talk about were the end of the Pentacles. I believe 7 through King, but I still have to work on those anyway. And so I'm gonna continue working on these cards. I'm hoping to get them finished shortly. You know, you can see the progress that's being made. So hopefully they continue to progress even after October, right? I've been sketching these cards, and it's been a passion project of mine for a couple years now. You know, one of those projects that you start and put aside, and then you start and put aside, and so this is kind of like my final big push to get these cards completed. And I am so proud of a good number of how some of them are turning out. Like, a lot of our Hymenopteran that we already put some ink on and doing, like, the parasitoid wasps and the honeypot ants and, like, the tarantula hawk, the pepsis for the king. Oh, man. And, like, the Ten of Swords with all of your spider eating all the flies. Like, there are some really great symbols in here and some really awesome insects to talk and learn about too. And so I'm really excited to see this project come to fruition. And then I will hopefully they'll be available on my website once they are all done and printed all pretty like. Oh, I'm so excited. Now, I was thinking about doing 2 sets of these cards, and because you're out there hanging out with me, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you. So, Susan and all of the other people who are hanging out and watching with me right now, if you were going to purchase tarot cards, if you were looking at tarot cards to purchase, would you want the words on the front of the card so that it helped you kind of... I was thinking about doing it in 2 ways. I was thinking about doing one set of cards that were just the images with the name of the card on the top, which is how normally tarot cards look. And then I was thinking about doing a second one that had a small a small info box, essentially, that described the card, kind of what I was thinking and what it's, and a couple of meanings. I hate to kind of assign meanings to specific cards, because every now and again those meanings change, and I'd hate people to be so locked into my meaning that they were afraid to look outside of that realm. But if I give them enough kind of variety, I'm hoping that people would, like, look. I'm thinking that same thing too, Susan. So what I'm thinking is that I'm gonna do another tarot session. You want the species and the explanation of what the card depicts. That makes sense to me. So rather than saying, like, what the card means and talking about the symbology, just saying, like, hey, this is what it is and this is kind of what it's doing. I like that. Right. That's true. And people may not be able to read my mind, right? So, I'm really excited about penning out the tower, because I think that this one is going to be really, really awesome. I also was wondering if I should just take these sketches and put them directly onto the computer instead of going through and inking them all. Because I could probably do all of the very similar things on the computer, but... Oh, I'm so excited! All right. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about getting these all situated, and how funny would it be if I took these images and put them into circles and also put them on normal playing cards. It wouldn't be sold as a tarot deck, obviously, because it wouldn't even have the correct number of cards. But I'm hoping that the illustrations and the way that they color out, I'm really wanting to be super proud of them. So I'm hoping that when I finish them up on the computer and do the coloring and the shading and stuff and add the symbology of colors also. And that's the thing, is that I think the next time that you see these cards, they're going to be... I could probably do one more session to finish up the other half of the Pentacles, but then I kind of want the next session to really be about showing them in color. Perfect, Susan. Thank you so much. So, yes, if you wanted to look up the tarot symbology of those cards or of those different things, you're right. People can just look it up themselves or learn it themselves. So it's like almost like a beginner and an advanced deck, you know, like but you're right. Maybe everybody is going to want to know the species and a short description of like maybe my description of what's happening in the card. Oh, that's so fun. You know, they actually even sell, I just hand cut all of these cardstock cards, but they do sell blank tarot cards, like a build your own tarot deck. They do just sell those so that you can sketch onto the cards directly. So, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with me today. I super appreciate it, and admittedly, I absolutely love when I have so many people hanging out with me. I think that we peaked at having 8 people all here at once today, and that's actually pretty cool for me. I know that a lot of us out there are staying pretty quiet, but that's okay. Feel free out there if you have been watching, you can go ahead and comment if you'd like. If you are not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. We talk about all types of insect stuff. I'm all about insects all of the time. I love my bugs, but I also do really love symbology and those types of things. And I kind of wanted to start and I'm interweaving this a little bit into my Invertober because we're live streaming every day of the month, and it's Halloween, so we're closing in on kind of spookier things, and I thought, you know, introducing a tarot deck now would be A-okay. I also teach on a platform called OutSchool. It's to students ages 5 to 8 and 9 to 12, and I have students who do weekly insect studies. I have like a junior bug club for the little kids, and I have a scientific illustration class that I teach where we get to look at insects under a microscope and we sketch the fine details and we talk about the individual parts of insects and all types of things. We have a really great time. If you use the link in the description box below, then you'll actually get $20 towards your first class. And so I super appreciate if you join me there, or if you know any little students who would be interested, go ahead and send them the link. That is a link to my PayPal account. I want to say thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, all of you people out there who regularly donate to me. It means the absolute world to me, and it makes a difference. I promise that it does. So I super duper appreciate it. If you are leaving today with a little bit more knowledge, if you really enjoyed hanging out with me today, sketching, chatting, talking about bugs, of course, feel free to send me a couple of dollars through that PayPal link. There's the QR code here, but you also have the direct link in the description box if the QR code doesn't work. Now, if you are looking for me on Insectopia and you're looking for me on Facebook or on Instagram and you can't find me, that's because you need Insectopia 2015. You need to make sure you have those numbers in there so that you can find me. 2015 is when I established and claimed the name. Although that was in Michigan and now I'm in Pennsylvania, but hey, it's still fair game. You have more watercolor paper scraps than you know what to do with. That's beautiful. Yes, good. I'm so happy that you all enjoyed yourselves today. Thank you so much for joining me. We are doing Invertober for the next 5 days. And so, let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday. So Wednesday and Friday we are doing ink line drawings of sketches we've previously made. Thursday and Sunday, we're doing microscopy. I have not collected and found a centipede yet, but I think I'm trying to find a centipede for Thursday. That's tomorrow. No, 2 days. So I'm trying to find a centipede for Thursday, but we'll see if that works out. And then Saturday, we are spreading Death's Head Sphinx moths. Oh, and next Monday, the 31st, which is our last day of Invertober, I figured we'd have a big, kind of like a big bug party, and we're gonna do an entire look through of my entire collection. We're just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pull out each of my drawers and we're gonna talk about the different orders and the families and why I have them organized the way that I do. And we can talk about individual specimens, which ones are my favorite, and you'll be able to go ahead and look at the insects that you've already seen and the ones you haven't and let me know which ones you're interested in sketching so that I have an idea moving forward, which insects you're most interested in sketching and drawing. Yay! Don't worry, we don't have to draw all the legs. Good, because I don't want to draw all of those centipede legs. But you know what? I would do it for you, ladies and gentlemen. I would do it for you. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your week and stay buggy. Bye.